this is Sarah, and today I'm going to show you how to make fabric masks. For these, you'll need 2 pieces of fabric. I've already pre-washed this 100% cotton and serged the edges so it's easier to deal with and so the mask lasts longer. You'll want to decide which fabric you want as your lining fabric and your outside facing fashion fabric that the world will see. These should be 9.5 inches long by 6.5 inches wide. What else you'll need? You'll need either elastic. This is a 1/4 inch black elastic. If you don't want to do elastic ties, you can also do fabric ties. And depending on who you're making these for, they may prefer the fabric ties. And for that, you'll do 18-inch strips, either making it into straight or bias binding or turning your tubes. If you want to do that, I do 1.5 inches wide by 18 inches long, and then I use this loop turner to help to turn the loops, and you iron them flat and finish off one of the sides. If you're doing fabric ties as well, you'll want to use some sort of elastic just to keep them in place so they don't unravel while you're sewing and then get caught in the seam allowance. So I just use these hair elastics. You'll also need some wire. If you can't find wire, you can also use pipe cleaners. For mine, I decided to use my pliers to help turn loops so I can use my button foot setting on my sewing machine to easily attach them. Other things you'll need, either to cut your fabric, you can use a rotary cutter, a ruler, measuring tape, and sewing scissors. And then other just things to make things easier on yourself, definitely some pins, and you'll need a serger or sewing machine, as well as if you would like to try hand sewing, that's an option as well. But if you're trying to produce a lot of these masks, it's best to have a sewing machine and to be comfortable with your sewing machine. Okay, so let's get started. So we have our 2 pieces of fabric here. We're going to take the first piece of fabric and we're going to start pinning in our elastic. So for this, we want to be careful with our sewing pins. We do not want to get any around the center because that will poke unnecessary holes in the fabric, even though cotton mends itself and kind of springs back into place pretty well. The less holes we have, the better for this, just for safety in the mask. And so for this, we're going to want to make sure there's no twists and turns while we're doing this. And we're going to want to pin along the 4 corners. Now that you have these pinned, we are going to sandwich. And for this, we're going to want to keep the right side, so that's for this fabric, you can tell which side is the wrong and which side is the right. And this one also, I'm going to choose the more colorful outer facing side versus the wrong side. You can do this either when you've already started sandwiching, or you can do this and measure it out. This is going to be for your wire insert. So I've been making mine around 2.5 to 3 inches long, just so you can bend it over the nose for a more tight, better fit. And for this, you can use either a piece of tailor's chalk to mark, or if your fabric is light enough on the wrong side, you can even use a pencil. So you're going to want to kind of eyeball the center of it and mark out around 3 inches. And this is the area that you will not be sewing over while you're using your machine. This is how we're going to turn the fabric, and also this is going to be an area that we can place a new filter in, so people can change out the filter if they have access to that, and also for washing purposes so they last longer. Okay, so now we have the 2 sandwiched together. We're going to start pinning. Again, try and avoid pinning anywhere around the center. We're just going to be pinning along the seam allowance. And I like to line up and kind of pin my corners first. Okay, once you have it pinned nicely how you like it, we're going to take it over to the machine. Here we are at our sewing machine. I'm using the Singer Confidence, but again, you can use any type of sewing machine with a straight stitch that you feel comfortable using. So I'm going to turn it on. We're going to just start on that line that we created earlier. We're going to just go in, then we're going to backstitch, and then we're just going to start stitching all the way around. And then we're going to want to stop at that other mark that we left on this fabric. Clean up any other loose thread that you might have. And next we're going to want to turn it inside out from this little hole that we left. And now we have this square with the two attachments. We are going to iron and press it. So for it now, we're going to first just get all of our corners and all of our seams nice and kind of placed out, nice and flat. Then we're going to go in with our iron. It's on the cotton setting right now. And if you want, you can fill it with some water if you have that option on your iron. Cottons are perfectly fine to use some water to steam and to press into place and get a better iron. And just be extra careful around your opening at the top so none of your serges show, your serge lines. It's looking much, much nicer and flatter and set. Now that we have that all set, we're going to take our mask. I've decided that this is going to be the outer facing side for this client, for this person that I am donating this to. And we're going to take some tailor's chalk or other type of marking chalk or fabric pencil. For this, I'm going to be marking my pleats. So I'm going to be starting at 1 inch. Right up at the top there. Then I'm going to be going down a 1/2 inch to mark the end of the pleat. So the first one's the start of the pleat, the second one's the end. Then we're going to be going another inch again, so we'll be going to 2.5 inches. And then we'll mark at 3 for the end of that pleat. And then for this next one, we will start at 4 and mark at 4.5 for the end of our pleat. So now we have one side marked and we have to mark the other side. This marking part is optional. If you feel comfortable just folding your pleats with your fingers and eyeballing it, that's okay too. 1, 1.5, 2.5, 3, 4, and 4.5. So now we have the whole mask mapped out a little bit. You can use pins, or if you like, clips if you don't want any kind of pinholes whatsoever. Since that these are going to be on the outer edge, not towards any part of the inner part of the mask or any part of the nose or mouth respiratory system, I'm not too worried about it, just in the seams. We're going to want to take our mask and we're going to use these as fold lines. Again, this just takes some practice to get those nice pleats in there. and then I'm just sticking a pin facing outward like that. And you want to make sure your pleats are all going the same direction. You don't want to start down here at all and have them go two different directions. And you also want to make sure that your pleats are going downward from this top opening. So we don't want to have little pockets to catch little things. We want the pleats to be going down. See, you have these nice pleats forming. So now we're going to stitch these pleats into place. So here we have the mask. Again, I'm going to be using a straight stitch, and for my stitch width about 5 on my machine. And I'm going to be doing, again, 1/4 inch seam allowance, just following the edge of the foot. So to start off, I'm just going to want to sew forward a little, back tack, and then continue down in a straight line and do the same at the end. And I'm going to do this twice. I just like to reinforce it. If you want, you can space these out a little bit. And if you want, you can do this top stitch all the way around the mask. And you can take out your pins and do it again on the other side. And now you have something resembling a mask. You can see those nice pleats. Next, we are going to be adding the nose bridge. So for this, my technique I use is I get one of these, which I have pre-made a bunch of them. I get one of my clips. I place it under the seam allowance on this little top flap right here. I place my clip on. I switch down to my 2-point buttonhole attachment. Again, you can do this by hand if you like as well. Then I just line it up, and carefully, before I put down the presser foot, I'm going to line up and make sure that I'm catching that loop. There we go, I have it all tested out, and now I'm going to put down a few stitches just to make sure that it's in place. And now you are all set. And there we go, there is the finished mask. When the person receives this, they can simply bend the wire to their nose shape. And again, this has this opening so people can apply their own filters as needed and take them out for washing. These masks will not protect fully against viruses, but they will offer some layer of protection for the wearer and the people around them.